Hydrostructural, the evolution of A to P, body structural correction. When compared to other spinal manipulation techniques, hydrostructural is notably unique due to the precision required to achieve movement of the structures of the body A to P using the hydraulic tissues of the body only, instead of brute force or high velocity as most other techniques do. And the angles required to do a hydraulic movement so unique and different to any other the strategy or maneuver of this kind. You will learn the difference clearly if you take the time to study this manual thoroughly. A significant observation from practitioners or health professionals worldwide is their tendency to believe they are making anterior to posterior corrections to the spine or rib cage, etc. In reality, they are often exacerbating the anterior displacement without realizing it. It is crucial to differentiate between applying direct force to the back of the spine, often referred to as a posterior to anterior P to A movement. This approach can lead to substantial changes in the body, mostly negative over time, especially when excessive force is applied. Such movements carry a high risk of causing structural collapse, which is why they should generally be avoided. High-velocity adjusting machines, in particular, pose a greater risk because their rapid high-velocity movements can misalign the body much more severely because how fast they can move things the wrong way and are anything but safe. In fact, they are more dangerous than using hands to push bones the wrong way, because it happens so quickly, leading to delayed but potentially serious negative effects. It's not until later you notice the worsening effects. Manual techniques, such as using hands to apply forward pressure, carry less risk but are still not the optimal method for correcting the body if you're pushing directly forward on anything in the spine. Certain practices, such as walking on a person's back or using hammers to whack bones around, are all dangerous manipulations. These are particularly dangerous compared to using hands because they inflict larger amount of force that collapses the person's body because everything is moved completely the wrong way. This leads to more significant amount of harm that is being done to people's bodies because it pushes them the wrong way. There are thousands of reports to verify this claim, from people quickly developing serious problems after receiving such treatment. This is why people are scared of body manipulation, as they should be, but hydrostructural is here to clarify exactly what it is they should be afraid of. Because if body correction is done the way hydrostructural has discovered the body should be corrected, then body therapies done in this way are brilliantly able to restore your body's health without any ill side effects. The detrimental effects of P to A treatment practices often become evident only after a prolonged period of treatment, highlighting the need for proper understanding of human physiology to avoid these risks. Proper understanding of human physiology and teaching it to the world is the key purpose hydrostructure was created. Considering massage also pushes the body the wrong direction in P to A fashion, and despite all the negative side effects that most people feel a few days after a forceful massage. The fact is, massage is still the most popular on a worldwide basis as a way to get relief from symptoms. This proves why so many symptomatic people are not being corrected by body therapies, and it's a mistake to think just because these body therapies such as massage or body adjusting techniques often fail and make things worse that there is little that can be done for these problems through body correction therapies. Hydrostructural aims to correct this fallacy. Body therapies are, as it turns out, the most powerful health regenerators in the world today, far surpassing anything we see in supplements or something revolutionary like stem cells or nutrition, diet, exercise, etc. You just have to learn human physiology correctly. You can't get it right if the basics are wrong. If you get it right, you'll be able to fix more problems than any other health strategy in the world today. A truly miraculous, almost seemingly impossible result for everyone who gets their body fixed with hydrostructural. The ability to make this claim will make sense the more we examine what are pitfalls of the current practices in health correction modalities. And their root flaw is the lack of understanding of even basic human physiology. When examining factors associated with promoting health, it becomes evident that many practices, while on the surface are considered beneficial for health, the deeper you go, you find that they also pose a great risk of harm to a person's health and body. For instance, exercise is widely recognized for its health benefits, yet it is also responsible for the greatest amount of injuries and painful degenerative issues that can lead to premature health decline or disease of all sorts, and is also responsible for a lot of worsening conditions that require major surgeries due to the damage that exercises cause. Sports and athletic competitions are also included in this declining factor of people's health. Even yoga or Pilates do their fair share of damage, as they too are responsible for a whole host of symptomatic issues people are facing after doing something they don't understand is harmful to their bodies in these practices. Hydrostructural acknowledges the potential for physical activities and exercise etc. to cause damage to the body, spine, rib cage, and other body parts, eventually leading to other problems. Hydrostructural offers a solutions or countermeasures designed to enhance exercise routines, aiming to strengthen and improve physical performance while minimizing unnecessary harm and avoid certain unsafe and damaging to the body movements people do in yoga, weightlifting, and the like. This approach will act as a guide that can be used to avoid practices that could lead to injury and offers methods for correction if issues arise. It is generally understood that exercise, despite its supposed health benefits, can be detrimental to your health, if not approached with the correct amount of caution. The same is true with a lot of similar activities. They are a double-edged sword, and the danger these activities pose can more than not be outweighed by their benefits. People who engage in exercise or similar activities do so because it provides a sense of well-being or relief. However, this sense of relief is frequently temporary and may require increased exercise to maintain. A lot of the effects are temporary and for cosmetic purposes, or for strength in competition sports, etc. But these activities are not really for health purposes in some cases. There is a way to use exercise to be healthy, but if your body is unstable, you should try not to exacerbate the problem with exercise. If your body is stable enough to exercise, you can, but understand the risk. This situation is comparable to the use of pharmaceutical medications, which, despite their popularity, often result in addiction and numerous side effects and are a major cause of death. Similarly, although exercise can provide temporary relief, it can sometimes worsen the underlying issues, leading to a dreadful symptomatic condition for some individuals. Thus, while exercise and other health practices can offer significant benefits in overall strength, they also damage and weaken your body at the same time. Exercise must be managed carefully to avoid potential negative effects. Hydrostructural presents a method to navigate these challenges effectively, promoting health and performance while addressing and mitigating potential risks. Exercise, and in fact most physical activities, are popular for all the wrong reasons. It is a great tool used to gain strength in competitive sports, but it is not all that healthy for you most of the time, and you can look at the studies that reveal that it does in fact increase the risk for your body developing a disease at a much younger age. This also explains why for some people physical activities make them feel worse and they have to avoid exercise even though they used to do it all the time, but now those activities cause them too much physical discomfort. The good news is hydrostructural can be used to correct their bodies to be able to get back to doing the activities they like to do without their body getting in the way. It's because too many injuries are piled up inside of their body and they have to slow down, otherwise they will get worse and worse. It should be common sense that if something was truly good for you, then it shouldn't make you worse over time. But people do exercise and other physical activities despite their worsening condition. For some, it gives some people temporary relief. But as it turns out, it is not because it's helping anything. It is in fact making things worse, but due to the release of cortisol there is some temporary relief in some cases. Not because it corrects anything in their body. The best that exercise can do for symptoms is it can counterbalance a big structural deviation to compensate better. But you have to be a specialist in human physiology to know how to do that properly, as there is a lot of exercises that need to be avoided for it to work even a little. In fact, for most people who do exercise to get a cortisol release, the problem is you have to damage something in the body to get the body to release the cortisol, which is just what the body does as a reaction to a new injury. Naturally released cortisol is a powerful drug basically, and it can mask a lot of symptoms until it wears off. Of course, the underlying damage is still being done, and it keeps adding up one on top of the other until the old injuries at the bottom of the unstable condition begin to pull your body, spine, rib cage, etc., too far out of its normal integrity that the cortisol does not offer any relief as it once did. At this point, if you do something so dramatic with your body or at the wrong time, then ultimately you have reached a maximum threshold and it is easy for something to break. This happens to a lot of athletes, bodybuilders, even yoga instructors, etc. So, the main point is that over time, such methods can lead to worsening conditions and long-term health consequences. Hydrostructural has the correct understanding of human physiology and has developed a working strategy to correct past injuries as well as offer guidance on how to avoid injuries in the future, and long-lasting health is now an option for those who thought it wasn't possible. There are 3 major mistakes in the way other A to P techniques try to move the body. Hydrostructural is based on years of research. We have identified just this year and perfected the correct approach to achieve an anterior to posterior, A to P, movement and the exact science behind how it's achieved. This technique is counterintuitive, as it does not involve direct force on the body's structure itself but rather through hydraulic dynamics. Hydrostructural teaches the precise methods that avoid the pitfalls of traditional manipulation techniques, aiming to achieve genuine body structural correction. While I refer to these incorrect movements of the body's structures as extension movement, collapsing movement, and traction movement, it is not my intention to criticize those who may be practicing these techniques. My aim is to highlight the distinctiveness of the hydrostructural technique and the unique approach we take to execute the A to P movements of the body structures where it is needed. It is crucial to understand the precision required to truly achieve a hydrostructural anterior to posterior movement. Firstly, you'll need to know more broadly the difference between these other types of movements. This article delves into the specifics of how this movement is accomplished using the hydrostructural technique. Although reading about it cannot fully replicate the experience of performing it, hydrostructural is gaining popularity, and you can learn from the instructional videos available on this website. The comprehensive details on how to execute these movements are meticulously outlined in this manual. Firstly, consider the concept of a collapsing movement. This term refers to a situation in which pressure is applied to a person's body, specifically targeting and pushing on their arms, elbows, shoulders, and rib cage. Such movements involve applying force from the front of the body, which can result in a collapse depending on the angle of application. The intensity of the force affects the extent of potential damage. While applying pressure more gently may reduce the severity of the damage, it does not change the inherent incorrectness of the action. It merely prolongs the time before the negative effects become apparent. One common technique that is used in this context involves placing the individual on a table, crossing their arms, and then applying downward force on their elbows. This is often taught in a to P, anterior to posterior, movement. But this is a misconception, as it is actually a P to A movement. The same mistake can also be made using a wall and jumping or pressing into the person's arms and chest in the same way. All of these approaches essentially are a spinal collapsing movement, and it also can collapse the ribs around the area being pushed on. Even it creates another problem, as the person banging into the person's body from the front can push their entire rib cage down or do damage to the person's arms, AC joint, or even their scapula. All of this, regardless of how it makes the person feel, can lead to a whole host of spinal deviations, such as the reversal of natural spinal curves, or flattening of the spine, dislocation of the rib cage, and may result in postural deformities such as kyphosis, hyperlordosis, or a swayback posture, or the worsening of those distortions. The second commonly mistaken for a to P movement is the extension movement. Extensive research has been conducted on spinal correction techniques, which led to the development of hydrostructural. Previous methods also aimed to achieve anterior to posterior, A to P, movement, but often failed to do so effectively. There are a whole host of structural correction techniques that hydrostructural took notes from over the years, but it was from these techniques that an emerging pattern of flaws was discovered, and we noticed that they were all spawning from this extension movement that was jamming up people's bodies, and it turns out that it was pushing people's bodies the wrong way for the most part in an anterior direction. These methods typically involved applying force through the elbows, chest, and shoulders, or placing hands behind certain areas of the back to induce spinal extension. While these techniques may result in observable movement, they frequently do not accomplish true A to P correction. Instead, these approaches often lead to a posterior to anterior, P to A, movement pattern. The perceived improvement in posture may only be a new form of misalignment, with some segments of the spine and rib cage pushed into extension while others are displaced forward in hyperflexion or in a collapsed state or even a reversal pattern that becomes worse. This situation creates a pathological extension posture rather than a stable, upright alignment with the body's spinal curves holding the body up correctly. Individuals might appear to have improved posture, but they are actually maintained in a misaligned, extended position. It's not balanced and centered like you want it to be. It's overextended. Even when applied with greater force, these extension-inducing techniques can lead to structural collapse rather than proper alignment. Though gentler application may avoid any immediate major collapse, it still promotes a pathological extension posture, which can be detrimental to the body's health. This approach may provide temporary symptomatic relief, but its effectiveness is inconsistent and can sometimes exacerbate symptoms. Overall, while previous methods have contributed to the understanding of structural correction, they have not successfully achieved true A to P movement. Hydrostructural addresses these limitations by offering a more effective approach, using the body's hydraulic tissues to make corrections, to achieve proper overall body postural and structural stability without the adverse effects associated with traditional techniques. The third incorrect method for performing anterior to posterior, A to P, corrections involves traction movements. Although this approach may be superior to extension and collapsing movements, it remains flawed. This technique involves pushing and simultaneously lifting the individual's chest upwards. While traction generates negative energy at the site of movement, it also carries the same pathological forces if the body is pushed in this direction. An even worse method involves lifting the individual's shoulders into a shrugging position and pushing them backward into extension. This approach can easily jam the spine or cause a collapse with an extension reversal below the area causing a collapse to occur, or vice versa, as the collapse can also occur above. Hydrostructural research focuses on achieving true A to P correction of the collapsed areas within the body structure with the correction maneuver to be able to slide the collapsed area back into its original position. This approach does wonders for a person's health, especially if you accomplish the desired movement without any mistakes. It has been previously mentioned that attempting to block bones or vertebrae and then squeezing them back into place with direct pressure on the bony areas often results in unwanted movement. It is crucial to understand that in hydrostructural techniques, it is not the blocking fulcrum hand that creates the squeezing or pushing pressure to move the area back into position. This is a common mistake in these types of manipulations. It should be evident that if one attempts to move something backward by placing a hand near the area and pushing pressure on it from the other side, it will in fact create a force that moves it forward, not backward, and forward means the wrong way. The result will of course be a P to a movement, meaning it moves forward instead of backward. Despite this being common sense, it is often taught as the correct method for moving things backward. There is a theory suggesting that moving things backward will cause the surrounding structures to move forward into their correct positions, but this is never the case. To achieve true A to P correction, hydrostructural techniques have developed a system that utilizes the hydraulic tissues within the body to create compression pressure internally, facilitating true A to P movement. This method does so while at the same time avoiding applying pressure to the individual's arms, elbows, shoulders, and rib cage, and prevents the spinal column from collapsing under the pressure of the blocking fulcrum head as the practitioner applies body weight through these structures. Developing this technique was no easy task, and initially, it was just an unrecognizable craftsmanship skill used by a few masters of A to P techniques, but for various reasons were unable to teach this skill and make it so it could be replicated effectively on a large scale. What good is an airplane if no one knows how to fly it except for the inventor of the plane? So too is the aim of hydrostructural, that anyone seeking to learn this skill will be able to do so without years of being misguided by a deceptive instructor who may have mastered on his own the skill to do A to P movement, but they do it in their own craftsmanship way. Yet they teach everyone else to do P to A, totally different from how the instructor does the same correction. The secret to doing A to P correctly is taught in hydrostructural technique. The secret being revealed that is used by the masters of A to P is found in the manual, and it emphasizes the use of water or hydraulic tissues within the body to correct structural issues without actually putting force on those structures directly, but instead using direct hydraulic pressure to move structures in a specific way. So, the way that this type of hydraulic movement is accomplished is by just compressing a person's abdominal area in the specific way hydrostructural teaches. The abdominal area is mainly just a large concentration of soft tissue with the diaphragm directly above everything and the internal intestines and such, which is mainly a highly liquid-filled area of the body. This is the source of hydromechanics that hydrostructural utilizes to make corrections from these areas, not on the bony areas. Essentially, we just squeeze people's bellies in a skillful way and the hydraulic pressure does all the work for us. This method hydrostructural uses is certainly unconventional and yet magical really if you think about what it does. Which is it gets people's bodies to start fixing themselves. As you get treatment more and more, the internal pressure starts to be reduced. The collapsing areas of the body start to stabilize and the muscles that were locked up in compensation start to let go of their tension as the structural integrity returns, and there is no need for the body to use the muscles to support things. You see, all the support your body needs are within a healthy structure. Hydrostructural only gives the body some assistance to mildly slide the structures back into their original or optimal position, and the rest of the restructuring happens on its own. How fast a person can restructure on the inside is the only thing that determines the body's rate of progress. But hydrostructural works for everyone who has a body. So, if you have a body, you can use some hydrostructural if you want to be healthy. Everyone's body is going to have some problem in their body that at some level a structure got stuck beyond your body's ability to correct it by itself. That is how hydrostructural can make a dramatic improvement in everyone's life. As it turns out, abdomen is the area where the body allows us to make corrections. So why the abdomen and not some other area like the arms and chest, like the way so many other techniques are doing it? It's a good question, and a lot of research has gone into why it is not safe to use other parts of the body to make corrections from. For instance, if we consider other areas of the body that are not suitable for making hydraulic corrections, such as, i.e., the head primarily contains the brain and some fluid. With the brain being mostly fatty tissue surrounded by the hard shell of the skull, it's very difficult to make hydraulic corrections without the use of some tools to get inside the nasal area. There is one correction technique that has proven to have some good results, but it is rare that anyone needs this correction for an extended period of time. Next, if you look at the neck, besides the jugular veins, the neck consists mainly of bony and muscular, ligamentous tissues, making it unsuitable for hydraulic movements. It is important to emphasize that the neck is a special, almost sacred area of the body due to its contents, such as the brainstem, and should be left alone. The neck has its own built-in one-of-a-kind innate intelligence that has its own system for handling any problems that arise in the neck due to its natural design and the fact that the neck is one of the few areas in the body that has a complete universal muscle pull in all directions created by the leverage the neck has from the muscles and how they attached at the base of the skull and down into the rib cage. Granted, if the neck is completely broken, this will require surgery, which is not the topic of this article. With that said, if it's something else or some other problem going wrong with the neck and body, internal intelligence probably put it there out of its normal position to counterbalance for other problems occurring inside the body, or something that is collapsing below that forces the neck to counterbalance. This is how chronic neck pain can occur. And the only way to fix this problem without shifting the pain more severely somewhere else is you need to fix the collapse that is happening most likely somewhere else below the neck. This tension from the collapse pulls up into a person's neck from a collapse at another level below the neck. Then the moral of the story is local corrections directly to the neck don't work because the tension is spawning from another area. Sorry if that's offensive to some who think the opposite is true, but it is true, I can assure you. This is how hydrostructural can confidently make corrections to the body with ease because we have the physiology correct. Neck manipulations in any form only irritate the neck or make something worse, even lower back pain or the like. Constantly disrupting someone's neck is responsible for more chronic or acute symptoms than you can imagine. It's a vicious cycle once you consistently start to disrupt the flow of compensation found in the neck. Your body will certainly always start to overcompensate if you disrupt a stabilizing pattern that is important to the body, especially if it needs to utilize the neck to stabilize the overall structure of the body if it's compromised at some level. And for some but not all, neck manipulations may have some temporary relief, but you'll have to correct the same problem over and over again because the body keeps disagreeing with the neck manipulation and putting it right back as soon as you try to move it. The major problem with neck corrections is the root cause is not being corrected. You have to address the structural collapses. Even accidentally or inadvertently squeezing on the neck or pushing it somehow or twisting in daily life somehow can cause a whole host of symptoms throughout the entire body, all caused by disruptions to the neck. Even sleeping wrong in various ways irritates your neck and causes all kinds of symptoms. Therefore, there is no need for cervical corrections, at least not in the manner popular in modalities such as chiropractic or massage. Even if it feels better in the short term, it will always make you worse in the long term. Trust your body's intelligence when it comes to the neck. You will achieve a pain-free body if you do, to say the least.